I'm tired.
The Late Morning Program with Namras Podcast.
Hare Krishna, everyone. You're listening to the Late Morning Program with Namras, the number one Hare Krishna podcast in the world. This is episode 108. And who better to have on Vic 108? No, just kidding.
You mean Vic 108?
Yeah, right.
From the guy who wrote for the Back to Godhead magazine.
Yes. We can talk
Amazing.
about that. I love those articles. Vraja Kishor Das, Vic Dicara. Raj, thank you so much for joining me.
No. Thank you.
So, for those of you who don't know, Vraj and I go way back. He was the temple president at the temple that I grew up at in New Jersey, Towako, in the mid 90s. And he was one of my, probably the most inspiring person in my Krishna conscious life at a young age. He was a brahmachari there. He was the temple president, and just really inspired me with his giving me attention. And even though I was a kid, but like giving me time and a great example. And I was just so inspired to be a brahmachari myself from being in his association. So I thought, let's reconnect. Let's get on the podcast and talk. He is in an interesting journey that he can share. That's I think very valuable for everyone to hear. So, Vraj, let's start from the very beginning. What got you kind of interested or involved in like spiritual life, Hare Krishna, straight edge? Maybe we can start there. Music. Let's start with your upbringing.
My upbringing was fairly normal. It was completely normal. Just like, no, actually, now that I've been an astrologer and seen a lot of people's lives, my upbringing was a hell of a lot better than normal. Like my parents were really good. And, but I mean, yeah, like normal in the sense I wasn't like in a religious family or anything like that. But my dad was very scientific and intelligent. So he used to like just talk about interesting things like what's outside the universe. And when you're 4 or 5 years old and you hear something like that, it kind of turns on the neurons in your brain to think about stuff like that. Who knows? Of course, I think this audience already knows like karmas and past lives and things like that. So
yeah,
who knows what my upbringing is? I can only tell you about what I know from this life.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then getting in contact with. Did you start music? Like you were very musical. You're still very musical. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think my mom really liked musicians. Like she had like a major crush on Jim Morrison from The Doors. And so she kind of wanted her son to be a musician because that's what she thought was cool. And my dad would kind of try to be a musician too, but like he didn't really have the flair for the art of it. But he had the taste, like he could like he had a taste for music. So they bonded on like listening to music. And they used to like curate records and listen to the records and stuff like that. So that also introduced me to the concept of art in general, which is good for scholarship, because that's also a part of scholarship. And then I guess, my mom was just like, wouldn't it be super rainbow dandy if my son knew how to play the piano? So when I was like 8 or 9 or something, they just started me on piano lessons to my like chagrin. Like I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do it, but yet it was fascinating. And so I learned, if you start with the piano from a real teacher, then you it's like going to a proper school or something, or it's like learning grammar. So then it gives your brain like the right way to think about music later on when you think about yourself.
Right. And as like in high school, and you got into hardcore music. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, that is how it happened. So it was more like I mean, I was just talking about this yesterday, so maybe I feel like I'm talking with a little less detail today. I apologize about that. But
That's
like
okay.
I'm just a weird person. right? And I've always been a weird person, which means I didn't like I don't like I don't know, like my biggest emotional breakdown when I was a teenager was I don't like anything. I don't know what am I going to do? I don't care. There's nothing. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get this job or that job or what, so like I was always weird. So that what happened with that was I would always go towards people who were kind of weird too. I would make friends with them. So I wound up being in the circles of people that were weirder than most. So I wound up like instead of being into football, I would be into BMX freestyle in the 80s. That was like a thing. BMX freestyle was a big thing. And then a big thing amongst like punky type of people. And then from that, it was like skateboards. And then from that, it was like these weird bands like Sex Pistols, Agent Orange. I can't remember some of the other Dead Kennedys, like those really punky bands. And from that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then the kids that were in my school, there was this like group of them that was really, they had a nice community with each other that were just head over heels musicians. These people were really good musicians too. It was like a really high caliber of musicians, natural, like spontaneous. They could just write like amazing stuff. And they were like 16, 15 years old. But there was a whole group of them, and they were into this like new thing that was coming out, which was like this straight edge punk rock, hardcore metal kind of music from New York City. We were on Long Island. And I just somehow, by the Karma River, got, my leaf on that river kind of flew in that direction, and I was in with them.
Right.
And then, so I wanted to join the band, like to be in their bands, because also girls was a big deal for me. So I like learned how to play piano. Well, that was like worth absolutely nothing in terms of like having a girlfriend in high school, attracting a girlfriend in high school. So I had this idea, like, why not join a band? That would be cool. Girls like that. But there's no position. I actually auditioned for a punk band with a synthesizer.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they were like, no, thanks. But then so I figured I need to learn how to play guitar. And that was also interesting. It's one of those past life things. Like in the fourth canto, Narada is telling Barishat. Barishat has this question about reincarnation. Like he's got this pretty good question. Like, how come the things that we do in life A basically happen to us in life B? It doesn't seem fair. Right. So Narada starts explaining like the connection between A and B. It's the same person. It's not a different person. And then, so Barishat's kind of interested, like, how would I know who I was in life A, if I'm in life B? So he starts to give some really practical info, how you can know your past life. And he says, one of the sure things that is when you have a talent or a skill that just happens. You just already know it. Then obviously because nobody learns something without making an effort to learn it. But if you learn something without making an effort to learn it, it means you already made the effort to learn it. So you must have done that in a past life. So that was how it was for me with guitar. It was just like, as soon as I picked it up, it was like, I know what to do with this thing. So I just put on records and started playing along. And then all of a sudden I was in bands, and all of a sudden I was in good bands that like, the people that were, making the music, not just like high school people. It wasn't like, oh, this is something to impress girls anymore. It was like, the people that were into music wanted to hear these bands. So I got lucky. I got in with these people that were really good musicians, and then that swept up into the whole
Can you
thing.
name some of those bands?
Well, you would laugh. The first one, the one that I tried out for with the synthesizer, was called Bloody Uterus. And then the first one that I actually got in was called Toxic Phlegm.
Oh my God, these names are amazing.
Really good names. Then those were not really any serious bands. They would just play like the Battle of Bands or somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
Then I got into a band called, then I made a band called Socially Incorrect. That was actually pretty good. It was a trio. So I was singing and playing guitar. And then because I did that record, the other guys that were we did a demo. And that got the attention of the other musicians in the school. So then all of a sudden they wanted me to be in a real band with them. So then I joined a band called Inner Strength. Now, again, nobody really heard of the band Inner Strength, but the members of Inner Strength are like people that played in bigger bands later on.
Oh wow.
And then that band got split in half and joined with this other band called Beyond. Now, Beyond is the band that like the people will still ask us to come play now. Like,
Yeah, I've heard of that band. Yeah.
yeah. So that band was very, very good. Like,
They
I
still
wasn't.
ask you to this day to
Yeah,
play?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then after Beyond, I moved to California,
Yeah.
and then I met Zach out there, and then we did Inner Strength. Zach is famous. He's Rage Against the Machine, Zach.
Right.
Then then while I was in not Inner Strength, Inside Out. While I was in Inside Out, I was like in contact with Ray. Actually, since I was in Beyond, I was in contact with Ray Kappa Raghunathas. So then we were making this plan to like take over the world. So he pulled me out of Inside Out, and we got together in Shelter, and we did Shelter. Then when we got close enough to each other, we realized actually we want to get further apart from each other. So then Shelter split, and we became 108 and Shelter.
108's a different sound than Shelter. It's like a different style, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. Were you mainly writing the songs for 108?
Yeah, 108 was like, 108 has different Mahadashas. The first one was the Vraja Kishor Mahadasha. That was like from the inception of the band up until like the third record. It was basically 99.9% Vraja Kishor. That's all. I wrote everything. I wrote the drum beats. I wrote the bass lines. I wrote the guitar parts. I wrote the vocals. I wrote the lyrics. I wrote everything. I told people how to do it. It was just like micromanager, set free, do everything you want exactly my way. Then the next phase of 108, then we broke up. But then when we got back together, or even towards the end of that, it started to be like I mellowed out a bit, and the other people kind of stepped up a bit. So, and actually, that's way better when you have more people like cooperating with things, you get better results.
Yeah.
So then there's a second phase of 108 towards the end, which carried over into when we got back together, which is where we were all kind of doing everything kind of equally, or more like combined efforts and creating things.
Why did you break up initially?
Why
do bands break up in the first?
Well, usually bands break up because for the same reason, like any relationship breaks up. It's just hard to deal with people.
Yeah.
And being in a band is difficult because you're creating things.
Yeah.
So everybody, it's like 4 brahmanas instead of, you don't really have brahmana, vaishya, shudra in the band. You have like 4 brahmanas. You have 4 people that are the heads. So it's hard to have them. If my head work in the same direction, when we do, then it's great. But when we point in opposite directions, that's usually what split bands apart. But that wasn't the case with 108. 108 was just because ever since I started the Krishna thing, not ever since, but since after like the first few months of being in the Krishna consciousness movement, I thought, I want to go, but let's go back to Godhead. Let's be Krishna conscious. Why do I still have my feet in like all this heavy duty nonsense, which is like dragging me down? Like, let me live in a temple and wake up at 2:00 in the morning and do sadhana. Let me not live in a van and like hang out with people smoking cigarettes until 4 a.m. Right. So it's not really like, I wasn't on the Narada Muni platform. Like I was in a platform where I don't really understand how being a brahmachari works with being a band. So I wanted to, for the longest time, I just wanted to stop being in a band. But the people that are like your managers in ISKCON, they're like, no, just keep doing it because we need people, and you're preaching and you're bringing new people in. It's great. So for a long time,
in a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice.
It's like it was a phenomenon in the 90s. The amount of young Western, people who joining Krishna consciousness at like in like larger, for people who don't know, like in the 80s and no, in the 90s, so many people kids joined the temples in America, North America. That was just mind blowing.
It was
I
mind
thought,
blowing. It was kind of crazy.
yeah,
It was scary in a way, but it was awesome. It
scary in
was
what way?
because I'm bringing people into a situation which is so dangerous because the temples were really falling apart.
Mm,
And the only people that were left, a lot of them were crazy. Like, it was like in the temple that we landed up in the shelter when we cleaned out the brahmachari ashram, the bed had like magic crystals in it along with pornography like magazines.
mm.
Like, so you got like new age people, porno, like what the hell's going on in here? There's rats in the wall, the windows are broken. Like that was the state of North American ISKCON at the time. So we're like saying, come on, Krishna consciousness is great. This is a great life. Come over here, dedicate everything, like give up everything, screw up your whole life for this. And then people get there and it's like there's a guy taping a crystal to his forehead, and there's like another guy running around with a knife or something. It was like weird. So it was kind of am I doing the right thing or not kind of feeling. But I felt like we could change the temple itself. We could improve the temple itself by bringing the people in, and we weren't just we were staying in one place. We were staying in Philadelphia, and so we could like focus on that place, and the leader was on our side. So we had cooperation from the management and everything. So it did work out.
So there was a kind of struggle in your mind of, okay, wanting to be brahmachari, doing sadhana, but at the same time being in a band, and then your authorities were saying you should continue to do it because it's bringing people. So then how did you eventually?
Well, and that was one thing is, for other people, you should keep doing it. But the other thing is people with experience know that you have to do karma yoga. Yeah, like you can't really just jump into Babaji yoga ashram, right? You have to do karma yoga. You're 18, you're 19, you're 20 years old. What's the chances that you're going to become a sannyasi? It's a really low chance without flipping out. And, so I think that was another thing. People realized, like, I think this guy is a passionate Italian musician, and I don't really know if he should give up everything and go live in Vrindavan and try to chant 24 hours a day. But I thought that's exactly what I should do. That's what I want to do. So I kind of hated being in a band while I was in it because I wanted to be a Babaji or a sannyasi instead. So eventually it just convinced the people, like, I got to try it. It's time to do it. I did this for long enough. And then this other thing was going on with the way that the school, like VIHE was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So there was like a mechanism now for me to do something that was fairly what I wanted to do, fairly, very, very sadhana focused and very study focused without having to be too crazy or too wild. Like I wouldn't have to relocate to India or something.
Yeah.
Your camera went out.
I don't know why. Oh, you can still hear me, right?
I can hear you. I can see you in my heart, but I can't see you on the screen.
Let's see, what's the problem?
There it is.
There we are. I don't know why that happened. That's weird. But okay. And so then did you feel more like you were doing what you wanted to do when that was Tawako, right? When after you left there?
Yeah, that was your era. Your era was, first of all, also I just wanted to say something like, it's not, you said I gave you attention even though you were a kid. It's probably more like because you were a kid. Like I really like kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why I really like kids is adults are so tiring. Because adults have so many issues, and adults have this is another thing with my nakshatra. With my nakshatra, my ascending nakshatra is Uttara Ashada. It's not a nakshatra that deals with peers very well. Like I deal really good if I have a superior or if I have a junior. But when I have peers, I don't know what to do. So like I love kids, because kids, they want you to take care of them. They want you to inspire them. They want you to educate them. I do really well with people that are clearly superiors too, because great. I want to be educated. I want to be inspired. But with peers, it's tough.
That's really interesting. I really like kids too, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I remember when that stands out to me was you had just come back from Vrindavan, and you gave me this necklace of Radhakund mud. You used to make those beads out of Radhakund mud.
Yeah.
You gave it to me and you're like, this is from Radhakund, this is from Vrindavan. And you told me all about it and stuff. And I was just like, whoa, I want to go there. I want to, because you explained it to me and it was like, and it just kind of like made this seed in my heart, like, of trying to understand what's Vrindavan and what is this place and why were you speaking about it in such a way that it's like the most amazing thing in the world. And as a kid, like that was mind blowing. I still remember that feeling.
That was one of the best experiences of my life, really. Just
But being in Vrindavan.
going to Vrindavan, getting exposed to that was a very positive experience.
Yeah. And you came back. I remember you played mridanga in the arti, and all my friends and I were like watching you, and you played these Bablu mantras because you learned from him there, right?
Yeah, like I took like 3 lessons, but yeah, that's like enough.
See, another thing, what I'm saying about like picking up like something from past life or something, you just like were playing these beats, and we were just like, we were mridanga players, and we were just like, what is this? I can't even imagine. I didn't even imagine. I was like, what is he playing? It's like nothing like we're playing. And that was another thing that was really fantastic. I remember when we came back playing mridanga. Oh my gosh. So you said
That's really funny though. That's really funny. Like how the tables turn, because now the way I'll look at you playing mridanga is we'll be like, whoa, what is that? I need to play that.
Yeah. So how long were you there in Tawako for? I mean, and then you eventually became temple president. How did that happen?
The whole way I got to Tawako was
Because
interesting.
yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's just because for good or bad, I was really pretty much like a brahmachari, where I literally didn't have a place to live. I didn't have money. Like I didn't even have a temple that I lived in. We just would go on tour and then wonder where we're going to go when we come back after 108. And once 108 started. And so I just wound up in the storefront of 26 2nd Avenue, which is not really fit for you can't live there. It's just a storefront. It has a toilet and a sink, but that's it. So we lived there for a couple of months, and Subal came to some of the programs, and he saw an opportunity to save my life, but also to like help his temple out. He's like, "What are you doing here? This is just." I liked 26 2nd Avenue because it felt like Vrindavan, because it's the same spirit, like early Krishna life versus early ISKCON and early Prabhupada. It's the same mood. I did like it, but at the same time, it was pretty difficult I want to shave your head, but not have enough money to buy a razor.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is very funny because I should have been rich. I just came off a tour. But somehow or another, you don't have money when you go on tour as a support band. But he said, there's this temple that's basically empty and it's big, and I'm sure that we'd like to have you. I could arrange you to meet the temple president. And then I went there, and I was kind of like, I guess sometimes I can be business oriented without knowing that I am, because I was like, well, here are my conditions. I'll move here, but like I don't wash pots and I don't do stuff like that. I'm not going to do book distribution. I can live in your temple, and I can do, like a weekly program for you guys, but I'm not going to be like the brahmachari that you usually have. Your camera went out again.
Yeah, no.
I think it's a wire because it flickered.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like a loose plug or something.
Oh man. Strange.
That's a different camera, right?
I think it's a setting on the camera.
Maybe it's shutting off.
Yeah, I think that's what it's doing.
All right, I don't mind.
You know what? Let me just change the camera to this one.
Really? It's so less glamorous.
I know. Okay, actually,
Okay.
let's turn it back on. Yeah, because that one's gonna keep going off. I guess. Whatever.
All right, this one does look more Babaji. This is
It's like all yellow and stuff.
yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, let's continue. Oh.
What were we saying?
You were talking about having conditions.
Yeah.
You're gonna
So
watch Fox.
he agreed to my conditions, and it worked out great for everybody except for the other brahmachari that was living there for the past 1,000,000 years.
Right.
Maitreya, who hated the idea that some little young guy was going to come in and scot free, you know, not wash dishes, not do book distribution, not do any puja.
Right.
So I think I actually wound up driving him away, and he moved away from the temple. I didn't try to; it wasn't intentional, but I think he just disliked me that much.
Interesting.
Yeah,
He's still around, by the way.
Yeah,
yeah. I saw him in was it Vrindavan a few years ago. I was like, whoa, he's still around. He's like a dinosaur.
Yeah. He has. There's something to respect about him. He's like
Totally.
he has this immovability, like a sense of immovability to him.
Yeah, he's like you think he's English or Scottish or something. Yeah. But so you came into the temple. Did you bring anyone with you, or it was just?
It was just me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just me. Like the rest of the guys in the band at the time, they weren't like brahmachari life kind of people. Rasaraj, I think wound up moving in with his dad after 26 Second Avenue. And Tony, I think he went to Philadelphia for a while and then left the temple. And then the drummer was always just like somebody that wasn't like a temple devotee person. So it was only me in the band. But then what did we do? Like we started doing the Saturday night. I called it Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Life.
Saturday Night Life. I remember that.
Yeah. And then we got like some people started coming to the Saturday night programs, and then they like pretty quickly just moved into the temple. There was Billy Joe and there was Mahamuni. I forgot what his Matthew Dasty. Yeah. And then he brought like 1,000,000 friends.
They were all from
like those Rutgers type.
Point Pleasant. Rutgers. Yeah.
And pretty soon Tawaka was pretty full with like pretty high caliber people, like, you know,
we're still around to this day. I mean, in their own way, but
yeah,
that's so cool. I love that. And then
they were good people. That was good. That was good times. Like those people were really, they were emotional and intense and like on it. They were like into it. But again, in another sense, it was like over the top because it's like 19-year-old, 20-year-old people. Of course, it's going to be over the top. It's like unbalanced. But setting that aside, it was actually a pretty wonderful thing.
Like, what do you mean unbalanced?
I mean, like you don't think about tomorrow or you don't think about anything realistic. You just think like, Krishna, let's go right now, back to Godhead, boom. Like it's not going to happen like that, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not thinking any like forward anything.
My parents, who cares? My career, who cares? I'm not, what career? You know?
Right.
What about temple bills? Who cares? Like even like that. Like I couldn't think about bills, money, finance. What? I need somebody else to think about that.
Right. And then how long was that going on for? That whole golden?
I don't know.
Call the golden era.
Yeah. I don't know, but it seems like, you know how like the Ras Leela takes like 1,000,000 yugas. So time is so dilutable, depending on how you're experiencing. Like time is a shakti of consciousness, or it's a part of consciousness. So it's flexible to consciousness. So how long it took like a lifetime. Like it took forever. I was living there for like lifetimes. That was a lot of stuff that happened there. But I think on the calendar it was like 2 years. I don't know, 94 to 96, 97 in total.
Overall good experience or traumatic or
I think all experiences can have a lot of things in them at the same time. That's why I named my book Train Wrecks and Transcendence.
right.
Like my memoir of that era, because it's terrible and it's amazing at the same time. There's things about it that are just such huge mistakes, or so sad, or so intensely bad. So such an intense shame, but there's things about it that are the most amazingly, incredibly great things, at the same time. So was it an overall good experience? Yeah. But also there's a lot of things that were painful or difficult.
Yeah. And then you got married after that, right?
That is also interesting.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of the weird things, is just the way people, I don't know, the way people were thinking of relationships and marriage. It's kind of like, how people will marry for a passport.
Yeah.
I feel like people treat marriage like that a lot. Or at the time when I was in ISKCON, they thought of marriage like that a lot. Like not necessarily for a passport, but for some other reason. Besides loving somebody and wanting to have a child with them and raise a family, which is the obvious, simple reason why you should get married. But the thing was, I was losing my steam, for the Babaji thing. This was what worked. This was what actually happened. After I quit the band, the way that karma had it was that a whole lot of super difficult things happened at the same time. But I think it was just to make it a long lesson pretty short and fast, is that once I quit the band, I realized, I didn't realize, but now in hindsight, I realize you do have to do karma yoga. You can't just become a Babaji. You can't just become a sannyas. It's not a good idea. Otherwise, Krishna would have recommended it.
Yeah.
So what happened was, as soon as I wasn't doing the band and I didn't have these big passionate projects, I started to lose my steam for, thinking boom, let's do the whole thing. Let's go be Indra. And then the advice from the mentors is, well, why don't you get married? That's going to solve the problem. Instead of, if you leave the temple, then that's disgraceful. But if you get married, then you have a good excuse to move out of the temple. It's is it really that important what my reputation is, and that I should ruin somebody's life potentially by marrying them just to protect my ass, my reputation, so that I can leave the temple with dignity? Your ego, it's not that important. What happened with me is lucky, that my destiny was to have a good marriage and to have a good wife. So it worked out anyway. But I think for most people, that's really dangerous.
It doesn't always work like that.
It doesn't always work like that. And it's terrible. So, it could be very bad for people, especially for the women. But I got married, and then literally the next day flew to California.
Yeah. I remember that marriage, right?
Yeah, we talked about that before.
We did, yeah. It was a happy time, but at the same time, a lot of, I remember you were saying before, it was such an auspicious thing, but at the same time, there was there was people, like me, maybe a few, maybe others also. I'm not sure what other people were thinking, but inauspicious thoughts in the sense of okay, now this means something else. This means the next step. This means Vraj is leaving the temple.
Yeah.
And leaving his post as the temple president of this vibrant kind of community that has begun to, amazingly, change the whole landscape of that
Yeah.
temple. So for me, it was a sad thing as I don't know how old was I? Maybe 12, 13 years old, and super involved with the temple with you. And it was yeah, it was interesting. It
For
was
me, it's a
interesting.
sad thing too, to be honest with you now.
Yeah.
I just wish that actually I've never really thought about this before, but imagine if it was a different world and it wasn't like about if you're married or not, or if you eat onions or not. Imagine if it wasn't like
Right.
that
Right.
and I could have stayed there.
Yeah.
That would have been great, man. That would have been
Yeah.
perfect. That's what
Why
I
is
wanted
it?
to do with my life. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Yeah.
Was it because you were getting married that you couldn't stay there? There were other married people in the temple, though.
No, it was that. It was a whole thing. It was that basic type of thing. It was that basic type of thing. Also, it was just too much. There was just yeah, it was that basic thing, and then also it was just ISKCON was ISKCON with, a lot of problems that were
Yeah.
directly impacting me.
Right. Like, for
And
example.
like Dhanadhar Swami being my guru, being involved in child abuse, like the violence towards women, I didn't really get directly impacted by, but the culture of not giving a damn really about the needs of children, not giving a damn about the needs of women, which is basically the same as the needs of children, not because women are like children, but because women take care of children.
Right.
Um, the male centricness of it, the macho ness of it, the complete lack of grasp of the essence of the femininity of what bhakti is. It's love. Love is a heart. Love is pink. Love is a girly thing. I don't understand how it gets to be like a monopolized male monopoly thing.
Right.
Uh, so that that was difficult for me. The like the conformity thing, the anti-intellectualism of ISKCON was hard to deal with. The conformity of it, the army kind of structure.
But you were the temple president, so you were at the top. So how did
It's
it?
not the top, but yeah.
But yeah, how did you feel that pressure when you were the ones making you were the one making the calls, though, right? Like, of
Well,
what happens
I
in the
mean,
temple.
yeah, I'm pretty brash, so I was trying to exert my power. But you're
Right.
not at the top when you're the temple president. You have like
Right.
GBCs.
BBC, there's a whole
Yeah.
hierarchy. Right. Right.
So like there was a huge thing. I mean, just to give you one practical incident, I don't remember the old days when women had to stand in the back of the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was one of the people that was like, this is retarded. Why are we doing this?
Was like in Tawaka, from what I always remember, it was they were saying side to side, but was there a time when
there
they
was
were just in the
there
back?
was a time, and when it was Sunday feast, and people, when you had to put on a good face to people, and it was Sunday feast, or even just like people would come in and be like, Indian women would be like, why would I stand in the back? They go up to the front.
Right.
Um, so on a Sunday feast in Tawako, even in 1989 or 90, women would be on the right side and the men would be on the left, but not during the regular temple programs. But then
Interesting.
you'd have Ramhat Swami come over after I made it so that all the time the men would be on the left and the women would be on the right, and then he would stand on the right
Oh.
intentionally.
Hmm.
So those are the kind of things like you're not. He
He was the GBC there at the
was
time?
the GBC for that place, so you can't really do whatever you want when you're the temple president. You can never really do anything you want unless you're the founder of Acharya.
Right. Wow. And so, okay, interesting. And then you got married and you're still married to this day to the same person, Shamasaki, who is an amazing person. And you have a family together and you live in Japan, but you went to California. And what did you do there? What was the thought process with California?
The thought process was okay, marriage means I need money. So where do I get that from? Because when you're a musician, you make money, but you don't make it like regularly.
Yeah.
And it's really not that easy to make it in a significant amount. So, and plus you need to do a lot of work. So musician wasn't going to be the thing that was going to make a family work. So that was one of the big question marks in my mind when I was considering the option of getting married. Like, if this happens, what do I do? How do I pay your rent? How do I pay rent, etc.? So my mom and dad, of course, were like, this is a very good idea. You should get married and move out of the temple. So they wanted to help in any way possible. So my dad was like, my dad has to this day a software company.
He still has it?
Kind of. He's now like a permanent consultant. It's more like he's an employee for somebody else, but technically he still has his company. And he employs my son, my oldest son.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah.
Like coding and stuff?
Yeah, they do different things like that, different projects.
So cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was like, yeah, well, you can learn HTML, and there's this other thing called Vermal at the time, and you can work for me. So it's like, okay, that solves the problems. So he said, but you have to live here in California.
Right.
So I said, okay, cool.
And how was that life as opposed to like the temple life? This was a completely different thing.
It wasn't completely different because we were still doing like a weekly satsang at our place. But it was very different just to be able to wake up on your own schedule and just to go to sleep when you want it, or it was very different to live with a woman. It was different. It was just fun. It was actually fun. Like one of my fondest memories is just brushing my teeth with Shamasaki, and then we both break out laughing, just looking in the mirror. It was it was fun. It was like there's so much freedom.
Right.
And it was a feeling like finally these people are off our backs. Finally we're by ourselves. Nobody's going to criticize us for brushing our teeth with a toothpaste that has gelatin in it, or whatever it might be, the way the hyper scrutiny that you have when you live in an ashram. And it just felt great. It was really very exciting.
There was the baggage even till this day of when brahmacharis change from being brahmachari to being grihasta. And like, it seems that's in that time it was even more magnified. I mean, now I think it's getting better slowly, but there's still like some shame around changing ashrams, even though it's like the natural progression of things.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think it's also tied in with misogyny.
Right.
Right. Yeah, but also it was worse in those days. But also, if you're just a brahmachari and then you become a grihasta, there's a certain amount of like, oh, boo-hoo. But if you're like the guy who's like the brahmachari, inspires other people to be the brahmacharis, etc., the future Babaji, the future sannyasi, and then you become a married person, it's like 100 times magnified. It was kind of like a sannyasi fell down.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, even though technically it wasn't.
Right.
And that kind of was what it was.
Yeah. I'm always thinking of ways to like make that easier for people. I'm not sure what's the solution there.
I think not being misogynistic is a big deal. It's an opportunity to live with a woman.
Yeah.
Women understand emotion intuitively way better than men do, because we have so much passion, testosterone in the blood all the time. We don't have the patience to take the time to feel these things and notice these things that they notice constantly. So if you're interested in bhakti, it's advantageous to be close with a woman, because you can ask her what it feels like, or you can see what she feels. I think that's one thing. And then I think the other thing is the expectation when I entered the brahmacharya ashram was the longer you can do this, the cooler you are, the better you are, the longer you can do this. And I think that's setting people up to feel like crap later. Because no matter how long you do it, there's always going to be, you can only do it for 5 more minutes. There's always going to be the end, you know?
Yeah.
So you're always going to feel like, oh, that's it. I'm not cool anymore. Why not do it the way they did it? I mean, I've read the Bhagavatam. The way they advise you to do it is, if you're a Shudra, you do it for like a week. If you're a Vaishya, then you do it for like a month. If you're a Kshatriya, you do it for as long as it takes for you to learn your thing. And if you're a Brahmana, then you do it all the time. But does that mean that you don't have babies?
No.
No, that means that you get married. But when you're married, the woman decides the sex life. Ritu-gamana, you know that principle of Ritu-gamana?
No.
The woman could say, I'm in season. Ritu-gamana.
Right. Oh, I see.
Or she could say, I'm out of season. And the man has to sit there and wait. I mean, you can initiate a male in a Vedic culture can initiate a sexual relationship, but the woman could say nope, and the man has no options if she says no. Wow. But if a woman initiates the relationship, the man has no options to say no. This is why it's really problematic. Like if Suparnika, somebody comes that you don't want to be related with, you have to go through loopholes and figure out how to get out of this in a way that doesn't break dharma. But yeah, and then that's considered to be brahmacharya. If the woman is decided, and let me tell you, it is, because women have way less interest. So, you know, even that whole concept of like brahmacharya is, and also the concept of brahmacharya as just being equal to celibacy, I think it makes brahmacharya disappointing. Brahmacharya is not equal to celibacy. Brahmacharya, the word Brahman means knowledge or study. Yeah. Acharya means behavior. Brahmacharya means behaving like a student. Celibacy is one of the angas or one of the yamas or niyams of what a student does, but brahmacharya doesn't mean celibacy. People usually say this word brahmacharya means celibacy. Brahmacharya means studenthood.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times students are celibate because they don't want to be distracted from their studies. And when you're not celibate, you get distracted because there's always, not just because of the act, but because of the strings attached to it. It's a karma and it leads to other things. So generally a person that's trying to study something and learn something won't get sidetracked into that. But, the concept that you can't be brahmachari if you're having sex and have children is also wrong. Otherwise, there would be no brahmana babies.
Right.
We would have never had babies. Yeah, so I think there's just like a misunderstanding of what brahmacharya is, a misunderstanding of the advantageousness or disadvantageousness for a male, male-centric, because it's my life. The advantageousness or disadvantageousness of having a woman around.
I really like that point.
Yeah.
I feel like I can relate with that a lot. I mean, the things I've learned that are helpful for my own bhakti from living with a woman is like so many things. Patience and forgiveness, and I mean children as well bring that a lot. Totally bring that out. Tolerance, humility. Yeah, we need to take away that stigma that it's something wrong. I think that's so toxic.
It's toxic.
It's so toxic.
Play the Britney Spears song.
How do you know that?
Oh my God, come on. I'm like a musician. I know everything. Plus, I'm like a regular person.
Right.
Yeah.
So going back to your timeline there, California, and then how long were you in California for?
Until I went bankrupt.
You went bankrupt?
Yeah, I went bankrupt. See, I'm very actually bad with finances. It's not just while I was a devotee, but I am bad with finances. The only one thing good I ever did in my life was a Kinshana Krishna, my godbrother friend.
Yeah.
He advised me one time that if you want to not have financial struggles, you should do Go Seva.
He told me the same thing, and every time I had a job interview, I would do Go Seva. I would give money to the cows, and I would get the job. It happened like 3 times in a row.
Same thing, same thing. Then I started doing regular donations to Goshala,
Yeah.
and I'm still not like Donald Trump or Rockefeller or something, but I don't have that like intense stress
Right.
of like, oh my God, I'm not going to have money to pay the bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really, that's an amazing thing. Like
That's amazing.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Why did we say that?
Because you said you
Bankruptcy.
went bankrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, that was before the Go Seva started. Yeah, so in California, it went like this kind of loop, like gradually getting less and less association with Vaishnav people, and kind of voluntarily, sort of voluntarily, not just by chance, but kind of like because of negative experiences. Negative experiences with devotees are worse than no experiences with devotees.
Yeah.
I know somebody might want to argue with that, but that's my point of view. That's why you need to avoid aparats. It's better. You're safer to a person who never does any aparat is in a better position than a person who associates with people and does aparats. So the negative connection with devotees was taking its toll on me, and so I was just moving into. I would just rather hang around with ordinary people. But that went in a loop too, so it started to like come back around. Like, okay, I've hung around with ordinary people enough. Now, like, I'd like to have some people that have their inner mind, like the deep mind, in the same place where mine is. Like, I can get on the same page with anybody. Like, anybody, because I'm into everything too. But like my inner mind, my deep mind is in a certain place where most people aren't. So after a while, it's like, I want to have some friends again that can talk to me about the same things that I really want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that also was facilitated by karma, which was when some like concert promoter wanted to have 108 get back together again. It was 2005 or something. And so those two people, Ras Raj and Trivikram, the singer and the bass player for 108, are like perfect friends for me. And like I mentioned before, I'm like a difficult person to be friendly with. But those two guys are like the perfect friends for me. And they're also like the perfect Vaishnav Sangha for me, because they're really deep and they're really sincere, but they're not hung up on any of the superficial stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're the same like me. Like, they're on the same page with everybody in the normal world too, but they're like, so seeing them again made me realize like that's the person that I want to be. I want to be like that. So I got back into like, the Bhagavatam is such a great thing. Let me read it again, And that's when also I was like tired of trying to make money here and there from computer type jobs. And all of a sudden Shamasaki just said, for no reason, you should do astrology. Just one day I was walking down the hall and she was like, I was probably looking depressed. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm sick of this career. She's like, you should do astrology. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. And then that was like playing guitar. It was just like, I get this. I know that. I remember this. I know all this stuff. It was like a past life. Boom, just everything turned on. Within a couple of months, I knew how to do it.
Wow.
So then that also was good for me in a sense, because when you do astrology, you're constantly talking to people about karma. And when you do Vedic astrology, then you're constantly, you have all the same basic concepts that you have when you're preaching a temple. You deal with all the same basic concepts with the astrology. So it's good. Now I'm doing something that I actually enjoy deeply. So, but what happened was around that time, 2005, 2007, we had invested tons of money into a house. We bought a house for like $150,000 or like $250,000. And then in this like really ghetto area of California. And then they like improved the area, and like the price of the house went up, skyrocketing. But you know how America is, like then the banks call you up and say, you could have $75,000 right now if you just change the percentage number on the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. And then we like take the $75,000 and landscape the house better, because we're thinking, well, let's put the money back in the house because then we can sell it for even more. And then we're like, let's sell it. The next door neighbor sells the house for $1 million or something, $600,000. So like, boom, let's sell it. And then that's 2005, 6-ish, with the, like, there was a big, huge economic problem in America.
Yeah.
And we were like right on the karmic edge of that. Like, we couldn't lower the price on the house fast enough to get ahead of the curve of the decline. We were always just lowering it a little bit too little, and so that nobody would buy the house. So after a while, we had a house that we couldn't sell for more than we owed.
Oh man.
But at the same time, we were like, that's fine, because we're sick of life in America anyway. We're sick of life, that the way that we had been living it, with that loop. We want to restart. Like, I want a fresh restart where we can kind of, when you change your environments, it's easy to change your inner self too. So my wife, she said, let's go to Japan. And I said, okay, definitely sounds great. I think Japan sounds interesting. It's close to India. But it's not India. Like, Japan is like very lawful, right? India is very lawless. You have no idea what the politicians are doing. You have no idea what the police are doing. Yeah. But in Japan, it's right on the table. It's all above board. Like, people follow rules all the time, every day. But still, it has Asian culture to it.
I freaking loved Japan
Yeah, it was great when you came here.
Oh my gosh. So, like, the place where Archana was, I would just like walk, because she had to go to work. So me and Tulsi were just at home. And so we'd like cook for her, and then we just go and walk, and people would bow to us. And like, it was like so clean and so orderly. It was just amazing and amazing. And people care about like aesthetics as well. It's not just clean, but it's like aesthetically pleasing place. We went to some temple nearby, Buddhist temple nearby. Then when we came to visit you, it was just, and then we drove through where the ocean side was, and oh my gosh, I want to come back because it's so nice. I remember that time.
Oh, it would be great if you come back.
Yeah,
I remember I went to Vrindavan once after having moved to Japan, and going to Vrindavan with some Japanese like habits was very, very conducive.
Right.
Because Japanese habits are very respectful to everybody. So it was really great to all of a sudden go into an environment where there's sadhus and things, but have that like spontaneity of the Japaneseness. Right. It's very conducive. So I think, like, yeah, culture is very important. Just teaching people to be respectful of other people is actually very important.
Yeah. Going back to 108, when you restarted doing that in 2005 or 6 or whatever it was, then you just started playing. Was it a regular thing, or it was just like, okay, every summer or something we
decided we were going to do that one show, right? And then the show gets canceled. Like 3 days before or something, it gets canceled. But so then we just like booked some other shows someplace else. And we just enjoyed it so much that we thought it would be dumb not to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So 6 months later, we booked something else. So we would do something like every several months, we would do something. And then we did that a couple of times, and we were like, damn, we like this. We like each other. Let's make a new record. So we did that. And then we even would do like a tour then, because the bands that were playing then had people in them that still grew up listening to our records. So there was people that wanted to help us. There was people that wanted to support us. So there were bands that would be like, yeah, you can come on a tour with us. So we could still play like bigger shows. It wasn't just like the 8 people from the town that were still into this music that was popular in the 1990s.
What made 108 successful? Was it the music? Was it the lyrics? Or was it a combination? Or was it the Krishna thing? Like, that's what kind of blows my mind. Like bands like Shelter, 108, what made them successful?
It's everything. It's a recipe, right? Recipes have so many different ingredients in the right proportion.
Right.
And every band has a different recipe.
Like, is it like the perfect storm in the sense of that time period? Like, what makes it not as successful now in the sense of people, you know, I mean, the whole music industry is different now as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
Well, I think one of the things that's different is when you're 40 or 50 years old, you're not 20 or 30 years, or you don't.
right,
So you don't have the same tolerance level for tapas, like that kind of intense, grimy tapas. Like being in a band is an intense tapasya. That's not a sattvic tapasya. It's like a very filthy tapasya. You have to deal with a lot of filth and a lot of dirt and grime and sweat and bad smells and unhealthy situations. When you're 20 years old, you can do that every day.
right.
Now when I play one show, it's like I need to rest for like a week after that. So it could be successful now if we had that energy and we could do it every day. Like I mean, when we were in 108, at one point we would tour like 220 days out of the year.
Really?
Yeah. So like if you do that, then if you put in the effort, you will generally get some kind of result.
That does sound like tapasya.
That's tapasya.
I mean, pair that even with your spiritual, like you were hardcore devotee as well during
Yeah.
that time. Dhoti on the stage, shaved head on the stage.
Yeah, and it's hard, like, and you can't really like party with people or enjoy people or you don't really make that much friends with people because they're not on your wavelength,
Yeah.
Like, I'll go to Germany and meet some German punks. I don't care. Like, but if I was a punk rocker, I would love that. Like, I would be, wow, cool. Now I have a friend who's a German punk. But there was nothing really interesting in it to me except who was going to be interested in talking to me about Krishna that night.
Mm. And so after the bankruptcy thing, what happened in life after that?
That was good. Then whatever planetary things changed. Things started to go good. Life started to have a better, like, optimistic feel to it. Actually, you know what? That was the beginning of Jupiter Mahadasha. That was the end of Rahu Mahadasha and the beginning of Jupiter Mahadasha. Yes, and accordingly, things started to get I had to start to feel optimistic about life, which is uncanny for me. I started to feel optimistic, and it just felt good, like, to live in Japan. For a while, we were living with Shama's brother, who's a Guru Kuli from Vrindavan,
Mm-hmm.
who's kind of famous amongst the Guru Kulis, Jiva,
Mm-hmm.
and because he's like a real, like a little mischievous prankster type guy, but he was very good music, like really good mridanga player from that era. It's not the same as like the modern kind of quality, but he's really good, and he has a lot of feel, a lot of soul. So we would play often together too. Like, you just sit down and play mridanga. We would do kirtan. We started doing programs again, more or less every week here in Japan, and he would play. And it was just fun to talk to him. He would imitate, the Indian guru, and we would laugh. He has like this way. The jokes that we could share were great. And then we were also living with her mom, who's my god sister, Bonanandini.
Right.
And that was also hilarious and interesting.
Does her brother still live in Japan?
No. So he hated Japan, but for some reason he just wound up here. Japan is a thing. You either like it or you hate it. And oftentimes after you live here, you think you loved it, but then you hate it. Because it's not anime. Actually, it's not really anime. And the way that it looks on the surface isn't really the way it feels after a while. Like, the people are very fake. Like, all the politeness and everything is very forced. It's very superficial. Right. And a lot of people have a lot of emotional problems inside because they're very repressed. And if you get deep with anybody, it gets either disappointing or dark. So it's difficult. Japan is actually a difficult place to live. In the same time that it's actually quite a nice place to live. Right. But it depends on what kind of person you are. He's the kind of person. My middle son is also like this. He hates it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if you're a kind of person that really likes spontaneity, and
he's like that, yeah.
Yeah. And if you really like spontaneity and if you really like truthfulness, then Japan is not the place where you want to live. India is the place where you want to live, or Italy or something like that, right? Or even America, because there you're going to get, truthfulness, but you're going to get spontaneity for sure. And you're going to get like hotness, right? India's hot. I feel like India's hot. People are hot. Italian people are hot. American people can be pretty hot, but Japanese people is like, are they alive? You touch them, it's hard to get them to be hot. They're cold. So shamans, I'm okay with that. I like that, actually. I think it's kind of polite and respectful to not show your heat. But her brother hated it, and he also wanted to get married, so it was hard for him. How do you marry somebody from when you don't like their culture? So he was trying to he was having a hard time with the girl, the girls that he could meet and everything. So eventually he just said, enough of this. I'm going to move back to his birthplace. And he moved back to Croatia. And then the day that he moved there, he met his wife.
Wow.
So now he lives there. And you know what he does? For people maybe in your audience who might know him, he's now kind of semi-famous as a musical instrument creator. He makes these musical instruments called handpan or whatever they call them. Those metal redanga things.
Right. A devotee who I interviewed named Hari Kirtan, who's also Guru Kuli from that time, he toured Croatia with your brother-in-law, and he was playing that circular hand drum thing. It's made out of metal or something like that.
My brother-in-law makes them now.
He makes them.
Yeah, and sometimes he tunes them to ragas. So you could, you have to there's only a certain number of notes that it can play. You can tune it. So he has some that he builds that are like Bhairavi. Or some other ragas. Yeah,
that's cool.
But he still hasn't given me one. Hint.
If you're watching,
Rajwan's
one. So Japan, and financially, how is Japan in relation in with America? Was it easier there than it was?
Yeah, I think America is capitalism is basically rule of the Vaishya. So capitalism is a really deceitful, tricky thing. And to live in a capitalist country, if you're not capitalist, you can really get screwed. So, like in America, there's just always a bank that wants to do something for you. That does not exist in Japan. There's no loan industry or credit card industry. There's nobody trying to loan shark you in the name of some kind of prime interest rate. This is just honest people. They put the tax included in the price on the product that they put on the shelf. That kind of thing,
Wow.
They don't have $4.99 plus tax.
Right.
They're honest.
It looks like $4, but it's actually $5.
And the other thing about Japan is the major. I don't know why we're talking about this, but the major things here are less expensive. Like the major expenses, like having a house, having a car insurance, those major expenses are less expensive. The other things are more expensive, like fruit is ridiculously expensive. You may have noticed when you came.
Yes,
food is expensive.
We walked in, there was a mango and in this one shop, and I looked and I did it on the converted to dollars, and I was like, how does this make sense?
What was it?
It was one mango, and it was like $25 or something crazy.
I've seen a mango for $700.
Really?
Yeah, it was in a fancy Nordstrom's kind of store. It was in an upscale department store thing. In their fruit section, there was a mango, and this mango was surrounded with it was decorated. It had flower garlands all around it and stuff. And it was on an altar, and the price tag was $700 or something.
That's crazy.
And there's people that buy that stuff.
Really?
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, how are they going to sell that?
Right. And then spiritually, how is it? Because I know there was in 2005, you kind of reconnected there, and then you went to Japan, but Japan doesn't have a lot of devotees there. So how did you kind of?
I mean, there is. I've had a good time in Japan, in terms of that.
Really?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, Tokyo has a temple. Right. There was a while when I was going there kind of regularly. The people are nice. I like them. They're like Japanese flavor of devotee, and they're kind of cool. I get along with them. There's nothing down here where I am, but that's kind of okay. I'm okay with that. We did our own program. for a couple of years. So we made a lot of friends, and these are people that are interested in Krishna.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily be like a temple devotee to be able to have katha with.
Yeah. I
And then
remember when
go ahead.
I remember when we came, there was this one girl, I think her name was Hari Priya. Do you remember her?
Yes.
She's Japanese, but she spent a lot of time with the balls,
Yeah.
and she knew Bengali. She
Yes.
was Japanese, but she knew Bengali. Like
She's-
she speak fluent Bengali because
Yeah.
she married a Bengali and she
That's right.
grew up in Bengal, but she's Japanese.
She married a ball.
Is she still there?
No, she disappeared one day. One day she just disappeared. Yeah, we haven't heard from her.
Oh man.
It's too bad because she was super interesting.
She was so interesting.
But the funny thing is, allegedly, in case there's any FBI watching, allegedly she asked us to watch her marijuana plants. Right? Because we had this nice terrace in the house that got a lot of sun. She was just, oh, this is perfect. Can you guys keep my marijuana plants here? So we're like, okay. And then she disappeared.
And she left her
Like,
plants.
we never heard. Yeah, they died or something. Yeah. we are also pretty bad with plants. We don't like. We got this new Tulsi, right? We bought these new Tulsi seeds, but what is it with Tulsi? Like, it doesn't look like a Tulsi. Like, are they really Tulsis with these huge leaves? Or is that
Well,
some kind of weird?
when they're younger, they have really big leaves. Like it's okay to have really big leaves. As they get older, the leaves become smaller.
So these are real, and
It's-
I should.
But it's also the shape of send me a picture, but the shape of the leaf has to be like that specific species that we all worship.
Right. It's not bumpy, right? It's a flat leaf.
Bumpy in like what sense?
Like a regular basil leaf is like bumpy.
Oh, bumpy. Yeah. No, it's not bumpy. It's flat.
Yeah, these might be real. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah. So association now for you.
Yeah, things are different now. Also, the internet has become ubiquitous to our life. We carry it in the cell phone. Things are different. You don't really need to be in the same town as somebody else. Also, I think people, I think, also misunderstand Sangha a bit. Maybe I could speak to it because I've been on
Please, yeah.
both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
So I think people misunderstand Sangha. It's not just that. I mean, if I live next door to you, do I have your Sangha? A little bit, but if I live a million miles away from you, but have an amazing heart-to-heart conversation with you, what's the quality of the Sangha? It's better. So the Sangha is actually like sharing of the being. I think that's what Sangha really means. It means like embracing Sangha. But like, what do you want to share? For Vaishnav Sangha, is it just a physical hug, like Sangha? Or is it, don't we want to share the bhava? We want to share our bhava. We want to share our heart.
Yeah.
Parasparam, like bodhiyantas parasparam, right? Katayantas chamam nityam. You want to talk. Like Sangha for Vaishnavas is based on words, because words share your feelings and words words are very transmissible with modern technology. So like, it certainly is advantageous. You can speak more. If I was your neighbor, right, then we could have more opportunities for heart-to-heart conversation. We could have more opportunities to share each other's lives deeply. But it doesn't mean that because I don't live next door to you that we can't get together and talk like this. So even though I'm in Japan, I feel like I have a good relationship with people that I need to have good relationships with, that I can talk to them about something real if I need to. And also I think every person should build their Sangha as well, like not expect it to just get handed to them.
That's huge. That's
so I think that people should do, like, for example, what Sangha do you want to have? You want to have a Sangha where people can get together and do kirtans? Then start doing kirtan. Somebody's going to show up. If you want to have a Sangha for, discussing X chapter of Bhagavatam, then discuss it. Whether it's like sitting under a tree in a field in 5,000 years ago in India, or whether it's getting on YouTube, that doesn't really make much difference. Just get in a place where people can access your words and you can access other people and do it.
I think I struggle with that. Like you said, people struggle with the definition of that. I think that I have a very narrow view of what that is, and that what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like create that, like the way things are right now with the internet and the like, if there is a need for that, then there is people you can create that sangha with who may not necessarily be next to you. I just think that it makes it easier when they're nearby.
It does, but then you also have the problem of aparat. You know, there's a
But,
funny.
but that can't be a reason why you don't try to make it in your locality, though, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe for me, because I find people find me abrasive. So I feel like for me, it is pretty good not to get right up in their face.
Right. Keep
Yeah.
a certain distance.
There's
You
a
felt
funny
that
thing with
since
astrology
yeah, go ahead.
that relates with this. What planets, planets like have their relationships with each other, which is either friendly or not unfriendly. But the way that you evaluate it is if a planet is too far away from another planet, then the relationship deteriorates. It gets worse. But if they're too close, the relationship will also get worse. It's the same thing. That's why marriage is difficult. That's why you have to pick your marriage partner carefully, because you're going to be too close.
Yeah.
So the relationship better be good enough that even when it deteriorates from being too close and on each other's nerves all the time, that it will still be good.
Right.
Yeah. Other people are blessed and they're better with relationships, so they can be closer, and they don't get on other people's nerves. But people like me, I have to be kind to other people and not force them to be next to me.
For me, it's I'm thinking about like my children and their sangha. Because right now, right here where we are, it's there are people around, but it's not like-minded in the sense of in all the senses that I want them to be. It's a lot of just like acquaintances and things. So I feel like I'm looking for something else. But then when I do go, so like we were away for 2 weeks, and then but we're like, oh, we miss where we live, and we miss the people we do have around us and things. And then I'm thinking, maybe it's not about where you're like Krishna will arrange something to happen where it's okay and everyone will be all right. And I don't have to kind of be thinking all the time, or maybe grass is greener on this side, or, that kind of mindset is probably not the best mindset to have, just like to change perspective on the situation you are at the moment. Astrology, tell us a little bit about how astrology has been for you, in the sense of, okay, it's a career, but also it's like you're full-time doing it on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah.
What do you do exactly, as far as, do you share like certain planetary things that are happening at the moment?
No, I don't do a lot of that, actually. My specialty is to research things. Like, that's my thing. Like, I'm more of like a researcher. So and also since I know Sanskrit, so I know Sanskrit. I know Sanskrit well enough that I can read a book and figure it out from the Sanskrit. I don't know it as well as I should, but so one of the things that I do is I read the actual medieval books from India on astrology, and I share that with people on YouTube and explain that.
Oh, cool.
Basically, I'm good at research, and I'm also good at criticism. So I can see where things are wrong, where things have gone wrong. So I try to help the science of astrology kind of rebuild itself. It come together and have, become something cohesive and simple. And what do you call it? Simple and repetitive, like in science, the experiment has to work 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and then it's valid. It has to be repetitive, repeatable, consistent. That's the word I want. astrology is a system. It's a scientific system for interpreting the symbolism of the universe. So, but it's all kinds of messed up over the centuries of disuse. So, but through my research and criticism, what I try to do is kind of help to rebuild it. So that's mostly what I do. I'm not mostly like a person that's saying what's going to happen next week or next month or this year is going to be like this, or if your zodiac sign is this, then this is the right time for you to invest in Bitcoin. That's not my style at all. My style is like, wow, this is what Jupiter symbolizes. And see, this is why this Jupiter symbolizes that. It's more philosophical. Like Jupiter symbolizes gurus because Jupiter symbolizes reproduction. This is an interesting thing. Jupiter symbolizes basically things growing. So that's why it symbolizes producing things. That's why it symbolizes children. That's why it symbolizes the people who raise the children, parents. That's why it symbolizes parent figures. That's why it symbolizes gurus, the teachers. That kind of thing, just to bring back the basic understanding of these really fundamental concepts, bring it back into people that are into astrology. That would really serve the science of astrology. That's the way I was with that. That's my same approach that I have with Bhagavatam. That's just my personality. Like that's the way I am with Krishna consciousness too. Like I want to study the Bhagavatam and I want to know the stuff the original way.
You don't do like charts and things?
I do. That's how you make money, right?
And you do that.
You provide a service like that. Yeah. But I don't do, for years I was doing like, okay, you could call me up on Zoom and you could pay for a session and we could do a session together. But that is really intense because you care. I care. So I'm like an emotional person too. So like that was like really draining to like get into people's lives and to their into their problems. So I actually stopped doing that when I realized I'm at the point where financially I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Then I said, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put myself through that anymore. So people can, because I know how to work with computers too, I can create things that can analyze a chart. I can make the software analyze a chart and produce and give, I know how to write my interpretations. I know how to make the computer generate a report for me. My report. It's not like it's a computer generated report, but I know how to make it say what I want to say.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's what I've done for the past like 6 or 7 years. And that's the bulk of what people buy from me are those reports.
And you have, and you get like a steady amount of
people
wanting that?
Yeah. It came so much that I was able to actually hire my middle son, to fill the orders for me.
Really?
Yeah. So that's
How
good.
old is he now?
He's 19.
My gosh. Yeah, it was like, was it 7 years ago that I came there or more?
He was still a cute guy then. Now he's like Mr. Big. Now he's like Mr. Big Guy, but he's still cute and he's still like.
Yeah, they'll always be cute to you.
Yeah.
Right?
No, he's still
have
like,
that feeling.
He's got this enthusiasm, which is quite endearing.
Yeah.
He's very bhakti. He's got like a lot of passionate feelings. He's very intense.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about what Krishna consciousness is for you now, going through so many different stages that we heard today about ISKCON and your Bhakti life and 108 and coming that, leaving America, going to Japan and becoming into yourself as an astrologer and study your Bhagavatam and things. So what is it to you now in 2022?
It's Manabhava Madbhakta is like putting your mind on Krishna. That's sadhana. That's what it is for me. So the way that I feel is the most effective thing for me is just to open up the Bhagavatam. That's for me personally, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that it works for everybody. But for me, there's no distractions. There's no excess baggage. There's no strings attached. When I just open up the Bhagavatam and figure it out. Like, it's not like reading a book, the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is like a puzzle that you figure out. For me, you figure out what are they saying, you know? Because it's in this other language and it's to other people and they're talking about far out things that I've never seen or heard in my life. So it's a puzzle to figure out, what are they really saying? Like, what does this really mean? What is really happening? What did this guy, well, I wonder what his facial expression was when he said this, you know, or you envision try to visualize the Bhagavatam in enough detail that it's that you're really concentrating on it. To me, that's what makes me, that's my sadhana. That's my feeling of sadhana. That's what puts my mind in Krishna consciousness. And I don't really think too much about what is Krishna consciousness. I just know that I like the Bhagavatam. It's like incredible. Every single story in it is so cool. I'm not even in a rush to get to the 10th canto. It's just so good, like everything. And it will just talk about these things that you won't expect. Like it'll have like something that's like so important to social economics. And then it'll have something that's like so important to like how you might play sports. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just has like everything in it. And it's all dripping with like this romance. It's a very romantic, emotional book that's God-focused emotion. It's just incredible. So
I feel like when someone becomes like from hearing from what you're saying, it's like you have no qualms about saying, you know, that the institution is not for you. I'm not saying putting words in your mouth, but I'm saying like I love the realness from you, just hearing that, because that's just you're saying that's who I am. I feel like the devotees can get caught up in kind of the outward superficial kind of form of things over the substance of things, and I'm trying to become more real myself as well, but I just want to appreciate you for that. I like that a lot, and I appreciate devotees like that a lot. Like they're just themselves, but it took some. Do you feel like it took you time to get to yourself?
maybe.
Or were you?
You know what I'm thinking about? Though? The Walking Dead. Right.
Oh, I love The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I started to think about The Walking Dead when you were talking. It's because that showed me like that illustrates really how people need to protect their ability to survive, and they'll motivate on protecting the thing that keeps them alive.
Right.
So I think it's that way with devotees, really, because I think it's this is another thing which is a plus about not being a brahmachari. When you don't need the temple prasadam to eat, when you don't need the temple roof to sleep under, then you stop like, you know, and how in The Walking Dead they compromise their morals. They'll kill somebody else who's maybe might be a good person.
Yeah.
Because that maybe they're a threat. So like, I think when you need stuff from an institution, whether physical or even emotional or ego-ish, you know, for like status, social, when you need stuff from the organization, then you're compromised. I think the devotees' ideal should be that they aren't in that situation, like where they should take. I think that people should be able to stand on their own 2 feet, take care of themselves, not burden Krishna for their daily maintenance.
Yeah.
Because that's also the very basic principle of brahmanas. Brahmanas should be independent. They shouldn't be employed by others or sustained by them. Why? Because it lets you exist in that space where you can just think about something, you know, focus your mind on something just for it, not because it helps you survive or because you need it, because you need a place to sleep. I think moving out of the temple and getting distance from people, like, why would I even bother to like try to do something that's going to make ISKCON people think I'm okay? Like, what would I gain from it? I won't gain anything. So it's not even on my mind. Like, oh boy, I should have put on Tilak today. I'm going on Namaras's show. Like, I'd never even thought of that, you know?
Right. I like that. I think that I really jive with that point. We have, I think it's becoming like that. I mean, temples naturally now are becoming like, okay, there's people living around the temple as opposed to more people living in the temple, people who have regular jobs and are standing on their own 2 feet, able to kind of serve like in a way that's kind of real and to their as much as they can instead of being guilted into it or pushed into it somehow. If they don't want to serve, then they don't have to. It doesn't matter. And the people who are coming, they're serving because hopefully they want to be there and serve the temple and serve the institution in that way. Do you think
Yeah,
the institution has a place?
maybe, probably. I think different people are different and they need things, but I don't think it has a place. I don't think it's essential. Otherwise, then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was at a great disadvantage because he didn't have ISKCON. You think that's the case? I don't think that's the case.
Right.
Um, so I don't think it's essential, but I think it serves a purpose.
Sure.
It serves a great purpose. It gives people exposure to Krishna.
Yeah.
But I'm not in the thing like I don't think it's required for sadhana or bhakti that you have to become a member of an organization. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But it's natural. I think you'll get natural organizations like Bodhyanta Parasparam.
Yeah.
This implies that there's a community of people, right? You can't have kata unless you have a community.
Yeah.
But I don't think it has to be like a governable social community unless you have a mission, like Prabhupada had a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that organization serves that mission. That's fine. That's great. But I don't. That's not my mission. My mission is personal. My mission is become happier.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I want to say too, I think is somehow related is what is this also? This is something also on my chart. It's because I have Chitra. I have Jupiter and Chitra as my most prominent planet. So I'm really sensitive to packaging and products and advertising. So I really don't like when things are packaged in a deceptive way, or when the packaging doesn't match the product, or when there's just too much packaging or too much focus on packaging. Give me the product. I'm buying bubble gum because I want to chew bubble gum. It's nice if the wrapper is purple and has a picture of a zebra on it. But if you just take the wrapper off and give me the bubble gum.
Right.
So when I go to Krishna consciousness, what do I want to get? I want to feel Krishna in my being. It's nice if there's a sannyasi or not a sannyasi. It's nice if there's a visiting something. It's nice if your temple is big or small, whatever. That's nice, but just that's the packaging. I don't care. I want to feel connected with the root of my reality. That's what I want to feel when the kirtan is happening. And if that's not there, then what's the point of all the rest of the stuff?
Beautiful point.
Yeah. So what I actually found is like the easiest way for me to get that feeling is from just like Vyas, Sukadev, Narada Muni, which you get access right with the Bhagavatam.
That's a brilliant point. Substance over form. I think Srila Sridhar Maharaj said that. Substance over form. Yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle, I'd like to feel that. I like to feel that too, and I think I do at points, but there's also where the packaging gets a little too much, or it's I don't feel it because of the packaging. Do you feel like you being there kind of at a distance is helpful to you? Like in Japan, it's kind of remote.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I can't look at the alternate universe where it didn't happen and compare the two Vrajas and see which one is doing better. But I know I'm okay. I know I'm okay. That's all I know. And it's not like I'm doing great. It's not like I have problems. Like I have problems. Everybody has problems.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I don't know. like I said in the beginning, I was weird when I was 12 years old, and I'm weird now. I'm weird, and it's okay. I'm just trying my best. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to my best. I just want to be like an okay dad. I want to be an okay husband, and that's basically really all I think about most of the time, to be honest with you. And then because I don't feel like I need to think about anything else. When that stuff is okay, then I feel like I could connect with Krishna. When I'm lacking on that stuff, then I feel like, what? You're not like, when you're doing sin and when you're doing adharma, then I don't think that you can participate in kirtan with your actual heart, you know?
Yeah.
But when you're doing dharma, why is it? I mean, this is always why I liked the family community around the temple more than the people in the temple, because they're doing the dharma. They're dharmic people. They're taking care of their kids. They're taking care of their spouse. Right? And they come to the temple, and so they access the kirtan from such an easier place. It's just an easier place the way they access the kirtan.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Yeah, I feel like it's a shame, and I feel ashamed, and I feel like it's a shame that I have many problems with many people. And so that kind of like, that cuts off my chances of like accessing Krishna with those people.
Like in your vicinity, or
No. Like, you know, like through the years, like with Dhanardhar Swami, or with like probably Raghunath, all these people that I've had arguments with or disagreements with. It's a shame.
Any chances of like that you'd want to fix things, or
You can't fix things. I feel that you can't fix things because you're not the only part of the problem. If I was the only part of the problem, then I could fix things. But the other half of the problem has to fix itself too, and sometimes they don't.
Well, Vraj, it's been nice talking to you.
Oh my God. It's been good.
For those of you, I guess I didn't share this, but we did this podcast already, and it came out somehow that the sound on Vraj's side was like so echoey that it was unable to be used. So I like waited 2 months, and Vraj was like, "No, we can't do it again. How can we do the same thing again?" And I said, "We'll forget about what we spoke about, and we'll do it again." So here we are doing it again, and I think we had a great conversation, and we brought some great points.
And I think it was completely different.
It was completely different.
Yeah.
Some of the things we didn't touch on. Do you want to touch on some of the other things?
Up to you.
Let's talk about, I mean, we can talk about it in a kind of, you know, a different way, I guess, this time around. But what is the role of guru to you? Because you've had kind of like a progression or a transition of your relationship with guru. So what was that transition like, and what's the culmination of that to you?
Yeah. To my understanding, the guru is the access that we have to Krishna, or just to knowledge, which is Krishna ultimately. It's the access. So, like, for example, the internet right now is like the guru for you and I to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And so Prabhupada has a phrase, the transparent via medium. You don't notice that the internet is there. It's actually not really that important, although it's essentially fundamentally important. It's not putting any of its flavor, hopefully, unless we have a disturbance, right? Or if we get a really good internet, then it's a really nice conversation. You know, you get a clear picture and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you don't really notice the internet. So I think the guru should be the same way. I am sorry to say, like, most gurus have the feeling like they're front and center, or most disciples have the feeling that guru is front and center. And it's not like that's wrong, because like, just like your connection is super important to your media transmission, but the content, that's the same thing. Guru is supposed to deliver content. If you're saying that you're a guru, but you're not delivering content, then what are you saying? Give me the content. I don't care if I have an internet connection if I don't use the internet. So give me the YouTube, give me the download, and then it'll be obvious that you got the connection. I don't need to know your parampara. I don't need to know where you got your mantra from and whether or not there was a break in your disciplic succession 800 years ago. I really don't need to know that. I don't care. Whether you deliver me the goods or you don't deliver me the goods is what I care about.
Right.
When you're telling me about Krishna, am I getting enlightened? That's what I want to know. And if I ask you about Krishna, if I have a problem and I ask you about Krishna, are you able to help? Then you're a transparent via medium. So that's what I think. On the other hand, Guru is front and center. Like, I think that the example of the internet or like a phone cable or something is really perfect example. The phone is the thing that you're holding. It is the most important part to you when you're talking to the other person.
Yeah.
But you don't think about the phone. You're not focused on the phone. The phone isn't the point. It's not like, yeah, I bought a phone. Let's use the phone. Hi, phone. You use the phone to do something else. So the Guru is the way that we understand Krishna, the way that we get connected to Krishna. That's what my understanding of Guru is.
Do you think we focus on too much sometimes on the personality? Or
I think I would think it falls into that same category of packaging. You should focus on the Guru 100%, but just like, but the Guru should be, the reason for focusing on the Guru 100% should be because you are focused on Krishna, and this is where you're getting Krishna from. I should focus on making sure I have my internet connection up because I'm going to do the conversation with Nam Ras. But it's not because I'm not focused on getting an internet connection, because the internet connection is so important to have. This conversation that we're going to have is important.
Yeah.
I think that people just like, my guru, this guru, what does your guru do? I don't know. I don't care. Is that so important? Who your guru is, my guru is? Also, it's like, what's the difference? What's the difference? Are you really getting something completely different from your guru than I'm getting from my guru? Then that's sus. That's suspicious. That's suspect. Because they're both supposed to be connecting us to the same reality. So, like, just like uber differentiation of the God brother and the not God brother, or the person who's in your parivar, like from Bhaktisiddhanta or not from Bhaktisiddhanta. Okay, I understand there's differences in the attitudes.
Yeah.
The way that the knowledge is transmitted, but it's the same knowledge transmitted. Okay, there's some differences, but is it really that much of a big deal? I think too much focus on content, too much focus on the medium, not enough focus on the you know what I'm saying? Too much focus on packaging and methodology, not enough on the actual content.
Like too much, to use the example, too much focusing on the internet connection as opposed to what we're going to do with that connection. Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, it's but I think it comes with certain maturity to think like that. Like, we have to do the work ourselves. It's not that, okay, once you have this certain guru, then it's like, okay, the onus is on you to do what, like, to be a disciple, to do what the guru says, and to put in the work, so to say. Not just you get initiation from someone and then that's the end of it. But everyone's saying, who's a qualified guru? Who's a qualified guru? But what about qualified disciple?
Yeah. I have two things that sprang to mind. One famous quote from a person that I really admire is, somebody asked him, why is it so hard to find a bona fide guru? He said, because you're not a bona fide disciple.
Right.
when there's no market for something, there's no product produced to serve it. And so you look at the world. There's who really wants to fall in love. Everybody wants people to fall in love with them.
Yeah.
So who really wants Krishna? The person that you will fall in love with. You will be in love with this person, not this person will be full. I mean, honestly, in love, it's both ways. But the primary focus. Anyway, yeah, I don't think anybody really, really wants Krishna. We have to sort of be tricked into it by the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam has to kind of show us, like, what you like. This is like really what the universal form is all about, and all that stuff. That stuff that you really know that you like and you want right now, that's just a sparkle from this real thing, which is Krishna. So, they kind of lead us by the hand to finally realize, like, it is better to fall in love with it is more enjoyable to fall in love with this great being than to have other people fall in love with me. That was one thing. The other thing was, I forgot.
Oh man,
What were you saying? Just like repeat what you were saying before.
I was saying how it's everyone's talking about qualified guru, but it's about being qualified disciple, and we don't stress that enough. It's not just you get initiated by a certain guru and then that's the end.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, I remember now. One of my favorite sutras from Vedanta Sutra is the third one. It's the first one is Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now you should ask a question. This is also like one of my favorites. You should ask a question about Brahman. And this is also, it's leading you by the hand. Why should you ask about Brahman? The second sutra answers because Janma Yasyata, because anything else that you wanted to ask a question about is really a question about Brahman, because it all really comes from that thing. And then the third sutra is, who should I ask? Right? The first statement is ask a question. The second question is, why is this question worth asking? And the third statement is, who should I ask? And the third thing is Shastra Yonita. So the thing is, you should ask Shastra this question about Brahman. That's the basic answer. But the wording that it uses is the yoni. Shastra is the yoni, or the womb, for the answer. But I always thought Shastra was the answer. I always thought Guru was the truth, right? Or the way the truth lied. I always thought the Shastra had the truth in it. It doesn't have the truth in it. It has the egg. But I have to fertilize it. I have to become a part of this process of gaining knowledge. So the way Vyasa describes the inquiry process to Shastra is participatory. So like you're saying, people just think like, okay, I get a lot of people just lay all their baggage on a guru. And they think that this guy is going to be my savior. As soon as I get this guy, he'll take care of all my garbage, just like a husband would, or just like a dad would. But that's not the thing. It's now you have what the guru really is now you have an internet connection. Now you have a source that you can, and you have a portal now you can go through to get into Krishna. Now you have to go. Yeah. It's not going to come out to you. You have to go into it. And if you participate with it, then this knowledge, the answer to your question about Brahman, can be born from it.
Right.
And so that I love that sutra. Like the Brahma Sutra is amazing, especially the first few before it gets really confusing. The first few sutras are really cool.
Wow. Awesome. So Shastra is the womb.
Womb, yoni.
Right.
So you also better not be misogynistic, otherwise, right? Vak is female, Shastra is female, but you're going to want to not associate with a woman. Then how are you going to associate with Shastra?
What about like if you're if you're a sannyasi or a brahmachari? I mean, but I guess there's ways of doing it in a healthy way.
Practical. No, I mean, that's okay. When you're a student, you really should take care not to get distracted.
Yeah.
So that you can focus on your studies, right? So when you're in that phase of your life where you're studying, study, don't go out and get married. Now it's going to be too distracting. You're going to have to pay bills and everything. But this is for studying. This is for preparation for something. Right. Or later at the end is a sannyas. Okay, that's over. there's no need to keep revisiting that same thing. Then you're done. Hopefully you learn from that. Now let's go back to that phase where we're focusing on some different content.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with ISKCON's version of Brahmacharya and Sannyasa is like, this is the ideal for everyone all the time, which is so anti-Vedic and so the opposite of what Varnashram Dharma is. Varnashram Dharma, the whole concept is everything is different for everybody. Everybody is an individual. One person should live this way, another person should live that way. At this time in your life, you should live like this, and another time in your life, you should live like that. The whole Hindu culture is so polyistic and flexible. But the Western mind is so monistic and rigid that it's a really interesting thing that happens when Westerners try to digest Indian culture, thinking, and philosophy. They stone it. They turn it into stone. They turn different bits of it into stone. We turn it into stone. We, make it so rigid. Shiva is who? Who is Shiva again?
Right.
And Vishnu is who? What are you talking about? Milk and yogurt? I don't understand that.
Right. Well, it was a real pleasure talking to you again, Vraj. And if you want to get in touch with Vraja Kishor, he's on YouTube. He has a channel. What's the channel called?
I don't know. I think it's just it's Vic Dicara's astrology.
Vic Dicara's astrology. But you can get in contact with him here, www.vicdicara, VICDICARA.com for those listening on audio only. And you can get in touch with him for astrology or any questions that you may have from this podcast that you want to discuss with him. I'm sure he'll appreciate some questions or anything. But any closing statement?
No hate mail, though, please. No hate mail.
No hate mail. No hate mail.
Yeah, I had enough hate mail in my life.
Any closing statements or things you want to say before we end there?
No, I'm grateful that we did this, and I'm kind of now, in retrospective, I'm happy that the first one was a disaster, like
Really?
technological disaster. Yeah, because now we got a chance to talk for an extra 2 hours.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
but
get
I just hope that when you listen to this one,
No, this one will be fine. Trust me.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
I trust.
Krishna's on our side for this one. It gave me the intelligence to make sure everything was okay. But thank you again. Really, really happy that we got to talk.
Thank you.
Stay on. I'm just going to turn off the recording.
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare.